Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. We're so happy to see you again. We've got some what we think is going to be really fun and good stuff, some great improvements to some tools that we're already using, and we just have an overall great feeling also in seeing what our teachers are doing. We are just so enthusiastic about where we are in our remote instruction journey. We think that LSL teachers are just doing a great job, and we know that this is not at all an easy time for folks. So just kudos to all of you. And I know that's still growing, and I think we're going to be growing the entire time that we're doing this process. So also, I know that just everybody's emotions are all over the place about this all the time. I don't have small children at home, and I was thinking about all of our teachers who are at home with their small kids, and I saw this meme that made me laugh really hard. I know that the text might be a little small, so I'll go ahead and read it. And at top it says, "When your husband is teaching chorus on Zoom," and then below it says, you are holding a Google Meet and your daughters are trying to get into Seesaw and find painting supplies for a project, right? Is this your life? Is this what it's like being a remote instruction teacher while having kids who are also doing remote learning? So just know that our heart goes out to you, and we're not completely unaware of what folks' situations are like out there. And I know that all of us have been struggling. This is like, this is day 20 of remote instruction, and it's not day 25 because we had spring break, but that means that we've been in school closure and shelter in place for 5 weeks. And for some of us, that seems like a much longer time that we've been away from our normal lives, but it's been 5 weeks, and I'm sure it feels like a lot longer for folks. So getting into the heart of things, we do have one more level 1 virtual Google Bootcamp to do. We have about 10 spots left in it. You can register there at bit.ly/LSL Bootcamp. ABC or capital. It's May 2nd and 3rd. It's going to be virtual, and those are a Saturday and Sunday. And just like before, you can audit if you need a refresher, or you can attend for the first time. We had one on the Monday and Tuesday of spring break, and it was the first one that had been done by that company. And I think we learned a lot, and I think it's going to get better. But just like with remote instruction, it's not exactly the same, but we're getting better at it. So we say it all the time, but one of the things we want to feature is remoteinstruction.org is the LSL Remote Instruction Resources website. It literally grows probably every day, but things are being added to it constantly. So there's a page for Google Classroom, there's a page for Seesaw, there's something for everyone on it, and I do mean everyone. So what I actually wanted to do was highlight what we have for families. We do have a lot of resources there for our families, and what we just added to this week, which by we I mean George and Celia, who I just have to say, are the best ed tech team in the best ed tech department in the state of California. And it's not a competition, but my team is winning. In any case, we put on, they made these instructional tutorials for our parents. You can see they're both in English and in Spanish. So we have the English one here, the Spanish one here, and they're showing parents how to connect to both Google Classroom and Seesaw. And in this time of remote instruction, and I saw a funny, well, maybe not funny, but a poignant tweet that said, this is not online learning, this is emergency learning. Like, we are all teaching through a global crisis, and we're doing such an admirable job. But I think parent partnerships, they're always important, but because that's who the children are with all the time, is family members. I think, you know, we're finding that we need to partner with family members as best we can. Also, if you watched the live stream board meeting this week, you saw that parents are begging us to connect with them more. They want to talk to you on the phone. They want to have meet conferences with you. They really want to be invested. They want to be your partner. And if you are talking to parents and they do have web access, and most of our families do, even if it's just on the phone, they can watch these videos on the phone. This website is accessible on the phone as well. So I wanted to show some of the other things that you can see on the parent page for families. So it's taking a second to load here. We have a distance learning guide for families in both English and Spanish. Everything we put up here is for both English, is in both English and Spanish. And you can see that those new video tutorials I just made, we have video tutorials for families about how to get into the Alisol portal. We have ones about adding home Wi-Fi to Chromebooks for families, about making sure the camera and microphone settings on the Chromebook are going well. We have Chromebook care tips in, again, both English and Spanish. And then connecting families to what we know is a great resource in Common Sense Media, the Latino site, and there. So please, as you're talking with your families, when they're asking for help, please refer them to the families page. Again, it's remoteinstruction.org. And we in the Families Familias page, we have everything in both languages for our family. So let's talk about Meet. You got a rather long email from me this week talking about how Google has rolled out some new features in Meet that will help us. So one of our top concerns that we hear from teachers is students rejoining without the teacher present. So Google has attacked this and heard it loud and clear. There are two methods, and this is going to be a short summary of that email. And hopefully you've taken the time to watch. I know 17 minutes is a long time, but you know, on the videos we send you and on YouTube, there's a way to turn the speed up so you can play it back faster. The hint is click on the gear. In any case, so we really feel like procedurally the Google Classroom integration, even if you're not using it for anything else, even if you're not using Google Classroom for anything else, has the best procedural advantages for both teachers and students. Again, this is on the website on remoteinstruction.org. Google Meet has its own page. That video is posted there. You can also see the original Eric Kurtz video, which the Alisol commentary video is based on there. And there's another video there about using the nickname meeting procedure, which if Classroom is not how you feel is easiest for kids, and you're posting links, for example, in Seesaw, then get that link by using the nickname procedure. And I'm not going to cover that in detail because it's covered on the website. A bit of a shout out to Eric Kurtz. We're not putting all of his videos on our website, but we're putting a lot of them. There's a really good one about mobile whiteboard solutions while you're presenting in Google Meet. And he mentions a couple of Chrome, or not Chrome, Google tools that are open to you and open to students. Chrome Canvas and Jamboard are both great. You can check that out. And in the coming weeks, we will be talking to you about Jamboard because we think it's a great tool, but not today because we have quite enough going on today. Okay, so one of the things he talks about is all the technical things. And as I said in my email, you know, this is partially a technology problem and this is partially a human problem. So we want to make sure that everybody has set their norms. These are also embedded in the website. They were linked. Shout out to Claudia De Leon, who is a bilingual teacher who did the Spanish translation for us. And you can see, if you click here, you can see that she has she has done it all in Spanish, and then she's a bilingual teacher and asked us to check the translation. It was all perfect, Ms. De Leon. Well done. So on the website, you can make a copy of these slides and then customize them to you. These are based on something made at Hemet Unified, which is down in the Riverside area. But we think it's really important to develop these, to communicate and reiterate them both to students and to parents. You know, I've talked to some kindergarten teachers who don't have to mute their kids, and that's kindergartners. And all the teachers we talk to who are having success on it, they're really clear with those norms. And, you know, I don't think video conferencing is going away for anybody, and talk about a career ready skill, right? So a way to teach, a thing that we can teach them to be, how to behave in, that will serve them for the rest of their lives, hopefully, but hopefully under much better circumstances. Okay, so new features. Last night, so I'm sure most of you are using GridView when you're working with students in Google Meet. And up until now, you've had to go get the extension and put it on your Chrome. Well, last night, GridView was pushed to all staff in alisal.org. So GridView is now automatically on. As long as you're signed into your Chrome browser, it should have been pushed to you. This is a new thing that was pushed. The nod for students, nod reactions for Google Meet. We're going to demo it in a second here. But nod was pushed to both teachers and students. We're not pushing GridView to students. After talking with teachers, we feel like the potential distraction factor with kids having GridView is a little too high. And somebody, Elena Clemente, who's a second grade teacher at Creekside, pointed out, you know, the kids do miss each other. They want to see each other, but if they want to see each other, I can just turn on my GridView and then present to the class, and then they can all see each other, and then, you know, we can have our meet that way, and then they see each other. But then when it's time for them to refocus, I just stop presenting the GridView. And we think that's probably a best practice. I've seen some cute videos in other school districts of kids doing like a Google Meet or a Zoom like flash mob, where all the teacher says a keyword or a certain amount of time into the lesson, all the kids get up and dance, or they all say a, you know, shadow word, and it's super cute. But it's partially cute because we're not the teacher and we don't have to deal with it. Nod, however, is really going to give us a way for our kids to interact. So we're going to do a live demo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully what you see now is this is my video call with George and Celia. I'm going to turn on GridView, and GridView has had some updates on it, and we'd like to point those out. So if you hover over the GridView, you will see that you can turn on highlight speakers. So whoever's talking, they get like a bright blue outline of a box around them. You can include yourself in the grid, which I would do, because it's a good reminder to what you're doing. And I should be actually presenting my screen right now. I'm going to present my entire screen. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. So talking again about GridView, going back. So here, there's some new features here. Highlight speakers, is what I was just saying, puts a bright blue frame around who's ever talking, whose ever mic is active at the time. Including yourself in the grid is also a pretty good idea. So you can make sure that you remember what you look like. Also, when you're in GridView, you can move your mouse over yourself and over people, and you can mute there. So you don't have to open up the people or the chat. So it helps that way. The last one is enabling GridView by default, and I'm turning that on because I pretty much always want to be in GridView, and this way I don't have to manually turn it on each time. But this new one below the line is my new favorite thing. So it's called screen capture mode. So it forces a certain aspect ratio, but my favorite part is it disables the names. So it gives you a way to remove the personally identifiable information if you need to take a screen capture. Now remember, the media release is still in force here, but at least it scrubs the names off for you. I'm not taking a lot of screen captures though, so I don't necessarily need to. But once you have nod, you may have noticed in the upper left, you have these new controls. So what nod does is it gives students a way to silently answer using emojis. So if a student understands, they say thumbs up. George just shows us that he loves that. So one of the really cool things about it is they've made it so I can't do a new emoji until my first one disappears. So what that means is students can't individually flood the screen with a bunch of emojis. If I have a question, maybe I'll click on the little guy, like, I have a question. And it has this other nifty feature. You'll notice the emojis disappear on their own. It has this other feature called a hand raise. So whenever anybody raises their hand, the hand raise appears on screen. So George and Celia are going to raise their hand now, and we'll notice that the hand raises are not disappearing. The hand raise is what we call persistent. It stays there until someone addresses it. So we think this is a best practice. So Celia's just went away, which tells me that Celia took her hand down. So here's the deal. A hand raise doesn't go away until somebody clicks on it. It doesn't have to be the teacher. Anyone can click on it. So when you're establishing a new procedure around nod, this extension, again, students and teachers have it, and both sides have to have it to be able to see it. Set up the idea that you only ever click on your own hand raise, and that's to take your hand down. As a student, you don't need to click on the hand raise, because when you click on it, it doesn't just make it disappear for you, it makes it disappear for the whole meeting. So those are new features that we think will make it easier. You know, when we're presenting and we have all our kids muted and they're paying their microphones muted, we should always be encouraging them to be on camera so that we can see what they're doing, especially if we're using grid view while we're presenting, so that we can see that they're paying attention. But they can use these emoji responses. So, hey, is everybody with me? Can I get a thumbs up? You get a bunch of thumbs up, you know you're moving. If amongst those thumbs up or the clapping, we get like the question, we know that, oh, Joshua needs some help. So maybe it's time. So we're really excited for those features. I know some of you have been asking for it, and we wanted to, we pushed them out to everyone last night because we wanted to make sure that we had spoken with all our teachers about that before we just threw it out there for everyone, and to surprise our teachers with like, how come my kids are all doing emojis and raising their hand? Where did that come from? So we just wanted to not surprise any of you folks. Okay, so as we say every Friday, if you have something awesome to share, or if you have questions, honestly, any support email you send, please send it to edtech@alisal.org. All three of us in the department pay attention to that. And so we can see, and your question gets answered most quickly. And it also is just it's a streamlined workflow. It's sort of the EdTech version of the help desk, or a help ticket rather, if you want. Okay, so that's our opening. So you
Josh,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Question came in, and I just experienced it. The question is from Kim. Good job, Kim. And it talks about grid view, and if you already had these extensions, will this mess up in any way? And what I wanted to share, Josh, you can share what I said, but what I did right now, it wasn't working for me because I already had these. So I had to restart my browser and then click on the nod icons, and then everything works. So that may be something you might have to do once today. If you don't see this, you're not seeing these things, you might have to restart your browser, your computer, so that they take effect. I don't know if there's anything else you want to point out about that.
No, it's a really good point. Thanks for pointing that out, Kim, and thanks for breaking in there, George. So quit Google Chrome. If these are not working for you, you don't see them, quit Google Chrome. Again, make sure you're signed into the browser. So in your upper right corner, you should see your little icon or the first letter of your name to make sure that you are signed in. Students won't have to worry about being signed in, because when they're signed into a Chromebook, it'll automatically be there. And if students aren't seeing this, tell them to restart their Chromebook and they should be fine. But as a teacher, if you'd already pushed it in and suddenly it's not working, go ahead and quit Chrome and then restart it, and that should make it work. And then in your extensions, which again are to the right of the address bar, the nod is a little thumbs up emoji that you should see there. Click on that to get it to go. And the grid view is like a set of 4 little squares. Click on that in case it's not working. Celia, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have something?
Yes, I do. There's another question actually related in terms of, so if you're presenting something in a Google Meet and a student, for example, raises their hand, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see them. And so I thought maybe you could go over the settings in case teachers want to turn on notifications, for example.
Okay, so I'm going to switch how I'm presenting to sort of show you what I'm doing. Eric Kurtz has a great video on this, but there's a video about how to see what's going on in your Meet while you're presenting. I have a pretty wide monitor, so I can set my screens side by side like this. But he does have, for example, I've taken what I'm presenting and broken it out into a separate Chrome tab here, so that, and when I tell Meet that I want to present, what I do is I pick only this window that I want to present, and that way I can still see what's happening over here. Remember, just because you make your window smaller so that you can see, doesn't mean that it's necessarily smaller for your students, and there's ways to overlap this. I can see that George has his hand up. Go ahead, George.
All right, Josh. So another question that is related this to GridView, and I think I know why this is, but you can answer it. The question is from Ms. Claudia De Leon. Mine says GridView is not running on this page. I'm guessing that that's because she is not in a Meet right now. She's actually on a live stream, right?
Correct. These extensions will only run on when you're in a live when you're in a Meet call. So right now you're in a live stream, so there's no interaction. We get to broadcast, and it's one way like television. When you're in an actual Meet call, when it's two ways, because right now in a live stream we can't see who's watching. We don't know who's watching. When you're in a Meet call, like I am here with George and Celia, I can see them. And so on the live stream, both Nod and Meet won't work right now, but when you get into an actual Meet conference, a video call, it should be fine then. Okie doke. Any other questions? Gonna give it.
I think that's all we have, Josh.
Okay. So,
Josh, sorry.
No,
I
go ahead.
mentioned that it might be good to show folks the little settings next to Nod,
Oh,
so
okay.
they know what those do, including notifications.
Okay. So let me see if I can zoom here. So again, the gear, all sorts of good stuff lies under the gear. So here in the gear next to, so we have the little thumb, the little hand raiser person, and then we have the gear. And very thoughtfully, your first row of settings is we can adjust the skin tone on our little person if we so desire. So that's good. And then if you turn on notifications, you will get notified when somebody raises their hand. It will appear in the upper right corner of your Chrome window. So it'll, like when you get a share notification, it pops up in the right corner for Chrome. So this is what it'll look like. They're showing you a sample here, and if you're concerned about seeing that, that would go ahead and turn on your notifications. And I believe it will if you have the sound for notifications, but I think that's a Chrome or a Mac setting. It might make a sound as well. And then it should update automatically. I've been getting the updates automatically, but if it feels like it's not working or something went away, you can go ahead and click check for update. I don't know this developer personally, but I've heard they're very open to improvement and stuff. So if you have an issue or something, and then if you want to donate, because this is for free, it's not made by Google. It's made by a small, what we call a third-party developer. So that's up to you. But those are what's there. And then this eyeball is whether or not you want your little when you raise your hand for your little picture to be there. But there you go. Thank you, Celia, for as a good call. Okay, so I'm going to stop presenting my whole screen again and present just one window. Okay. Thanks for those questions, guys. So again, edtech@lsl.org. And now we're done with our opening. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and I will put a timer up in a second. So here's what we're going to do on the main channel is George and Celia are going to lead us through Flipgrid, which is an amazing 21st century video-based student discussion board. It's super engaging. There are teachers who are already using it all the way from kinder up to 6th grade. Because it's video-based, it's available for every language ability, every language speaker. Because it's video-based, it's great for bilingual classes. It's great for emergent speakers. It's great for kids with low writing ability. Everyone can participate in this conversation, and it's teacher moderated too. Ben, Mr. Cogswell from Barden, has been getting a lot of Seesaw questions, so he asked if he could do another one, but he wanted to, and we're happy to have Ben. It's really helping us. That if you want to, and it's totally choice-based, you can stay with us for Flipgrid. You can go over to Seesaw Part 4 in the continuing saga of Seesaw. He's going to be focusing on making activities with Google Slides. The bit.ly is up there, and we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. I have 9:58, so we will be back at 10:08. And I am going to put up a timer real quick and leave this slide up so that folks can see the bit.ly, because I'm sure they'll need it. All right. So that's your 10-minute breaks, folks. Go ahead and stretch your legs, get some water, run to the bathroom. We will see you in 10. Okay, folks, we are back. Just a reminder, if you're having a hard time with the bit.ly link for the other channel, remember that the L and the K do need to be capitalized. Okie doke. So here we go. You guys are going to flip over Flipgrid. And now to Celia and George.
Alrighty, so I'm going to start. Wait a second. Sorry, got my presenting confused there. All right, so if you want a copy of these slides, we have the bit.ly for you on the top left corner. So make sure that you're capitalizing AUSD, but not capitalizing Flipgrid. And so there were a couple of announcements that are going to come up, but as people are getting started with getting the presentation and just settling down, in case you aren't familiar with Flipgrid, we wanted to just mention that their motto, let's say, is to empower every voice. And so Josh has already mentioned, for those of you who don't know very much about it, that it's basically a way for students to collaborate and communicate and connect with each other and their teacher. And so it's just another tool that we can use to make sure that students, you know, it's including, like Josh was mentioning, the really quiet ones that are shy to raise their hand, or the ones who have limited English, or the kindergarten students who need something that's not text heavy. That all of our students have a chance to speak up and use their voice and be recognized for the power in their voice. And so we wanted to bring this tool for you and give you a quick overview of how to use it. So just a quick announcement, or a couple of quick announcements, actually. The link is still up on the top left corner in case you were still needing to get to it. And there are a couple of things. One is the announcement that's on the screen. So George and I were talking, and we're going to be having virtual office hours starting next week. And so we were thinking that since we're getting a lot of emails in terms of trying to, fix problems or trying to troubleshoot some things or just quick little questions, we figure that we're gonna hold Monday, Wednesday, Friday office hours from 1 to 3 next week. And it's gonna be drop-in. So if at any time during the week you're like, hey, I would like to ask Celia or George a question about this, or I need help with that, you don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything. Just pop in. One of us will be in the Google Meet, and you just pop in and we'll take questions as people come in. So we'll make sure that we get you the link and information about that probably on the weekly next week. So keep an eye out for that. And speaking of, trying to answer questions and troubleshoot, there have been a couple of questions on the Google form for today's PD that have been really specific questions or specific to individual teachers. And so if we don't get to your question on air, just know that we're going to follow up afterwards individually via email. So we see your questions. We're just, in terms of efficiency, we're going to work with that workflow for now. But keep sending in the questions. We'll answer them as they come in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody's on the slides, and we'll make sure we send them out as well. But our objectives for today's training is going to be a quick overview of what Flipgrid calls the educator dashboard. We're going to review some settings and information that you're going to need in order to manage your Flipgrid. We're going to make sure that we show you the teacher experience as well as the student experience. And then Flipgrid has a couple of really neat ways to build the collaboration, both with students in your classroom and with other classroom and other teachers. And so we'll talk about different ways that you can collaborate using Flipgrid as well. So that being said, we need to get you started, right? And so in order to get started, you're going to need an account. And so I'm going to pass it over to George now.
Boy, that was, well, we definitely get rusty really quickly, so I apologize for that. But like I was saying, some of you have definitely been using Flipgrid already. Shout out to Ms. Murillo at Montebello, who's been sharing some cool things that she can do, especially with regards to physical education through Flipgrid. So check that out on Twitter if you're on there, Ms. Murillo at Montebello. So thank you for sharing that stuff. But if you want to create an account, if you've never used it, you want to go to flipgrid.com. All right, Flipgrid.com. When you get here, you have a couple of options. You can sign up for a Flipgrid account on the top right-hand corner, or down here at the bottom where it says Educator Sign Up, and notice it's free. So that's pretty awesome. So that's how you can get started. Once you click on one of those, and you not have an account, you can go ahead and sign up with Google. So just click on Sign Up with Google. You don't have to remember another username, another password. It will just use your LSL credentials. Then you will get to creating an account on here. You'll have to fill out some basic information here. Once that is filled out, you can click Let's Go, and you will have created your account. That simple. So Celia will show you now as to what you do once you have your account.
Got it. Okay. So there's some terminology to be learned with Flipgrid, just so that there's a common understanding. And so the first thing that you're going to have to do once you have an account is create what Flipgrid calls a grid. And so whenever you hear the word grid, I need you to think of something that is a class or a group of students. And so, most of us are probably going to have one grid because we have one homeroom class. If this were a situation like in a secondary class, then you might have several grids for each of your periods or subjects, whatever the case is. But you can also think of it in terms of if there are any support providers like intervention and speech and RSP, they don't necessarily have a specific rostered class, but they could still create a grid for the group that they're working with. So again, think of a grid as being like a class or a group. And so you need to do that in order to get things started. So we're going to get to the educator dashboard. When you make your account and you're in your account, it's going to look something like this page. And so I just took a screenshot of what it looked like for me. You're not going to have very much on information in the middle because, things are just getting started. All of your menu options are up at the top. And so these, like my activity, my grids, all these, we'll go over what they are and how to use them. Over in the top right, you'll have all of your account settings. But the educator dashboard is where you go to look at all your grids, look at the topics. You can provide feedback to students. You can look at their replies. You can search for new topics. Pretty much everything happens from your dashboard, right? And so on your dashboard, you get these menu options on the top. It also gives you a little summary of total engagement. Again, because we're going off of Flipgrid as being a way to empower students' voice, it tracks how much time of total engagement across all of your grids you've had with your students. I took this when I had just made my my grid, and so obviously it didn't have any engagement so far, but I assure you I do now. Down at the bottom, you're going to click on Add New Grid to get started and to create a new grid. So if you were to click on that, you're going to get these options. And I need to stress a couple of things. So again, you're making a grid, and a grid is a classroom. And you can you're going to need to follow at least these 3 steps. There are more options, but you really just need these 3 steps. You're going to name your grid, which is your classroom. So I typed in Salina Scholars. The second one is probably the most important one, because in order to maintain student privacy, we need to make sure that students have the right, and only our students have the right type of access to the grid. And so the second step that you're going to get is select the grid type. I need you to make sure that you click on school email. because our students have Google accounts, it's the easiest for them to log in using their Google email. They don't need access to the actual like Gmail. We just need the Google accounts. Please do not use the option of student IDs or making a grid public. Again, just in terms of safety and privacy, like these should not be used. Please make sure it's under school email. And the third step you're going to do is you're essentially going to have what's called a flip code. A flip code is the link or the address to your grid. You can customize it if you'd like. And so in this example, for example, I typed in Selena Scholars because I wanted it to be easily nameable, but Flipgrid auto generates them. And so if you don't want to create one yourself, there's going to be a bunch of letters and characters, but it will be random. And so if you'd like to customize it, you can do that. So 1, 2, 3 steps to make your grid. After you select that, it's going to get you to this page where they want you to confirm the setting that I mentioned over here about school email. So because we're allowing students to access the grid with their Google accounts from our district, we need to verify that only students who have an @alisal.org email address are able to access the grid. And so it should auto-populate by itself, but if for whatever reason it doesn't, you can type this in. So you're just typing in the domain for our district, type that in so that it makes sure that it allows students from this domain in. And so only our students will be able to get in. So make sure you type that in, or if it's already there, all you're going to have to do is click next. And you're done making a grid essentially. So just make sure you pay attention to the settings. Remember that a grid is like a classroom or a group of students. It'll take you back to your educator dashboard once you make a grid. And so again, here's my educator dashboard. I still don't have any engagement because I just made my grid, but now it'll tell me that I have one grid. I named my grid Selena Scholars. I don't have anything posted on it yet. But if you ever need to update anything, you can go back and edit it if you'd like. Speaking of some things you can edit in terms of your grid, if you click on that little pencil icon to edit your grid once it's made, you're going to get some more options that are up to you, but we want to make sure that you're aware of them. For example, you can receive email notifications when students submit videos and replies. And so again, very similar to the way you can receive notifications on Google Classroom and you can receive notifications in Seesaw, you can get notifications for Flipgrid too. So you can change that if you'd like. There are other options here that you may or may not want to change, but I would probably point out the notifications for sure, and maybe even the captions, just in terms of like making sure that everything is accessible for students. You can turn on auto-generated captions. And if there are other settings you want to change, you can definitely go ahead and look through those as well. But please make sure you're paying attention to those notifications. And that's about it in terms of making a grid. Remind your grid is a classroom. So once you have the classroom set up, you're going to need to make a topic inside of that classroom. And so we're going to pass it over to George so he can describe how to make a topic now.
All right, thank you, Celia. So Celia was saying there's definitely some terminology that we need to learn. So again, earlier you learned that a grid, think of it as a group of students or a classroom. And here, creating a topic, and then in Flipgrid, a topic, think of that as creating an assignment, different assignments that students can respond to. So here we have the name of the grid that Celia created, Selena Scholars. You can see here that she already has one topic here. It says, and here's her topic. But if you want to add a new topic, you click where it says add a new topic on there. Remember, think of a new topic as a new engagement activity or a new assignment for students to respond to. So once you click the add new topic, you're going to have some options on there. Of course, you want to go ahead and name it as appropriate for you. You want to go ahead in this area here. Notice that you can limit for students how long their video responses would be. You know, right now, I believe Flipgrid has a limit of 10 minutes max. So you can adjust this up to 10 minutes. But of course, you know, think about if you leave it open to 10 minutes, how long those videos can be and how long you may have to listen to, you know, to get through all your students' work. So be thoughtful as to how long you want the students to have in their responses. You can give directions in this area down here, give any specific directions that you want them to follow. And finally, even though these are optional down here at the bottom, I wanted to point out to a few things on here. Number one is that you can actually add other things such as a video. If you recorded yourself, you have something you've recorded, you can actually go ahead and upload that as a video that they can respond to. So that's probably, I want to point that one out because I think that can be pretty important. Now the other pieces on it, just again, be cautious and be be aware. For example, if you try to share a YouTube video, we know what that will how that will work with our students. So be thoughtful about that. We've also discovered that, for example, if you wanted to add a GIF from this website, some of them work and some of them don't. So again, you want to go ahead and try this before you actually push it out to students to make sure they can view and see everything when you're trying these things. But definitely, I think that record a video that you may want to share with them to respond to could be useful to you. So once you're done that, you go ahead and click create the topic, or you can go ahead and have more options. I want to go ahead and point to the more options on here, because this is what you will get. Oops, sorry, because this is what you will get when you go to more options. And once again, like Celia said, anytime Celia has arrows or these little googly eyes, pay attention. It's important. So we have these four main settings up here at the top. We have, first of all, video moderation. It probably is a good idea that as you are launching this, you are the moderator of these videos to make sure that the students are using them appropriately and that they are being good digital citizens. So this might be something that you might want to start with it turned on, so that you, just like in Seesaw, you will have to approve all the videos before the rest of the grid or the rest of the class or group of students sees it. So important setting there for you. Also, this is also a really important setting. Students can respond, student replies. So yeah, you may want students to have these conversations or respond to each other. So this is a setting that you may also want to consider. Again, think about what the purpose of your activity is, or your topic that you're creating here for your students, to decide whether you want to turn that on or off. Also, with regards to topics, you can have them, they can have 3 different status. They can be active, which means students can post videos. They can be frozen, which means only students can only view what you have approved or what students have posted. And finally, it's hidden. It means they won't be able to have access anymore. So that is something you may want to change, or you may want to adjust. Maybe after you have given students the opportunity to respond, you can go ahead and freeze it so that nobody else can add anything more to that topic. Now, this is also a pretty important setting on here. If you create a grid, you can set it so that it freezes at on a certain date and time. So again, you can leave it to never, and I believe by default that's the way it looks like, never. But you can change it to any date and time, so that, let's say you want the students to, their assignment is to respond or to create to respond by 3 p.m. on Friday. You can actually set it that way, and what will happen is it will automatically change it to freeze. So students will be able to still view, they just won't be able to respond anymore. So again, pretty important settings, these 4 up here. You have a whole bunch of other additional settings down at the bottom that you may want to take a look at. But really, we wanted you to go ahead and really, we can't stress enough how important these 4 settings at the top will be for you and your students as they are working on these topics on here. So once you do that and you go ahead and create the topic, you're going to get what's called a Flipgrid code. and it's a URL pretty much. It's sitting right here. And one thing that you can do is you can go ahead and copy the link and paste it into, for example, Google Classroom, or you can go ahead and paste it into Seesaw. So those are two options. I don't know if you noticed down here, but we have a pretty cool little icon that we recognize on here. So if you want to assign it, you know, this Flipgrid through Google Classroom, you will click there and it will create an assignment in Google Classroom, and you will have to follow all the, you know, some steps about giving permission Flipgrid to access your classroom, your drive, and so forth. So, you know, the typical types of permissions that you've probably gotten used to by now. And then when you're done with that, you will go ahead and click All Set, and your grid will be ready to go, and your students will be able to respond. So, you know, hopefully that was helpful on how to create your first topic, or for lack of a better word, assignment. Celia is going to go ahead and walk us through now to managing Flipgrid.
Awesome. So now we have your classroom set up. And you also have a topic made inside of that classroom. And so once you have your classroom and you've made discussion prompts or topics for students to respond to, there are a couple of more features and settings that we wanted to make you aware. They can be very powerful, but we know it is a lot to learn and play with. So we want to walk you through all those things that you might want to consider. And at the same time, if there are some things that you feel like maybe is something you try next month or not at all, like please feel free to do that. Like there are a lot of settings, but the basics were what we've covered up until now. Make a classroom and then make a topic. But we're going to go into some additional settings in terms of that will help you to manage all your classes and your topics. So we're back at the educator dashboard. We're under my grids. And so now I have, this one grid that I've created, Selena Scholars. When you're on this page, there are a couple of things to note. If you ever want to see what this looks like for students, to look at a student view, you're going to click on your flip code. This is linked. And so all that I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on that flip code. It'll take me to the login page, just like students would see it. And then it'll show you what the grid looks like for students. And so again, just if you ever want to double check and make sure things look right, you can just click on there, easy access. If you need to share, like George was mentioning, if you want to share an entire grid with somebody, you can go up to this button to share. You can share via link, via QR code, or through Google Classroom, anything you like, you would share there. And I want to call attention to these actions here. If you were to click on the action button for your grid, you get these options. If you ever want to go back and edit it, you can do that. If you want to duplicate it, you can do that. For whatever reason you need to delete, there's nothing on there and you're like, you know what, let me just restart, you can do that. I'm going to call attention to two things. The first one being notifications, which we've already mentioned, but again, if you're ever just like, where did I get my notifications? You're going to go under actions for your grid and you can change the notifications there. You can change them from daily, weekly, every single time a student posts something, or never. Again, we would recommend that you do turn on the notifications. The frequency is up to you, but in terms of just making sure that you're looped into what students are doing, and especially as students are learning a new tool, we would definitely recommend it. And there's also this thing in Flipgrid called co-pilots. And so you can add co-pilots to a grid. And so co-pilot are your co-teachers. Again, much in the same way that you can add a co-teacher in Google Classroom, you can add a second teacher into your Seesaw classroom. You can do the same thing with Flipgrid. And so co-teachers, and which are called co-pilots, have the same rights essentially as a regular teacher or the main teacher. And so you just want to keep that in mind. But we definitely have that ability to do that. That was, I want to just make sure that I explain myself, that all of these settings were about a grid. right? Your entire classroom. This second set of settings is for a specific topic. And so now if you notice, I have this list of topics down here, and now I'm going to go under the actions for a topic. And so this topic, it was just a test topic that I had made. If I were to click on actions under this topic, I get these options. Very similar, like you can delete the topic, duplicate it, you can move it to another grid, you can hide the topic, you can edit it. You have all those options for a topic, which again are the discussion prompts or assignments that you're sending students in your classroom or grid. Again, we're going to call attention to a couple of things. If you ever need to move the topic, you can move it to a different grid. If you need to add somebody who's not a regular student in your classroom, those are called guests in Flipgrid. And so you can add a topic guest. It will generate a link for that specific person so that you can send them directly the link to the topic. And so if you add a guest, just an FYI, that guest has access to only that single topic. And so if, for example, you want a family member to have access to a grid, or maybe you're having like a guest come into your classroom, like a content expert, or maybe somebody's doing a read out loud and you're inviting somebody from the district office to do a read out loud for your classroom, then they're going to be a guest. They're not a regular student in your classroom, but you want them to have access to this topic. You would add them there. A little bit later, we're going to discuss what the Disco library is, but if you have a topic, right, you've created this prompt and this assignment, this discussion starter for your students, you can go to Actions and click on Add to Disco Library. In short, the Disco library, as you can see here, it's a ready-to-use library for topics. If any of you are familiar with Seesaw, which I hope you are, you can think of it as like the Seesaw activity library, right? Things are already pre-made, they're ready to use. All you have to do is assign them. That is what the Disco library is. But if you create your own topic and you want other people around the world to have access to it, you can add it to the Disco library. If you need to rearrange your topics, right, it's going to be a long list down here. The more you use it, you can reorder them as well if you'd like to. But again, so all these settings are for a topic. Once you're inside the topic, you're going to get a list of responses under. So this is the view of what it looks like inside of a topic. And so the prompt for the topic is up here. If you added any media like George showed you, it would be up here. But once you have student responses, they'll show up down here. I want to call attention to a couple things because students can see each other's responses. If you ever want to move a post that you think is particularly good to show as an example, for example, to like the rest of the students, you can click on this little star, and that little star will make sure that that post that you have starred gets shown at the top of the responses, so that it doesn't get lost in like a sea of 30 responses from your students, right? So you're highlighting it and you're featuring it with this little star. It tells you who has excuse me, who's responded. If you click on the actions button, you're going to get these responses. You can download and very similar options as topics and grids, but I wanted to point out these two things that are new. If you haven't approved the response yet, again, remember that we're recommending that you moderate the topics, and so they're not going to be viewable until you approve them. And so if you're doing that, you're going to get this option under the action button for a student's response. And so you can activate it from here. And you can also do what's called adding to mixtapes. So that's another option that you're going to have there. And there's a little cute little picture of a little tape from back in the day. Mixtapes, just a quick little note there. It's a way for you to collect responses from anywhere. And so let's say that you have different grids or different topics, and you want to get this one response from one of my students on one topic that was an exemplary response. I'm going to start a mixtape. And then maybe next week there's a new topic and another very intriguing or thought-provoking response from my student. I'm going to add that response to the same mixtape. So again, it is very much like you think about making a mixtape, that's what it is. You're taking one response from one thing, another response from another thing, from any grid, from any topic, and you're essentially curating a collection of student responses in mixtapes. So if you want to do that, you can do that. You can reorder student responses here as well. All things for you to look into. I did want to call attention to a couple of things. We're going to get into how you can review and give feedback for each of these responses. But if I were looking at the topic as a teacher, I would see the responses down here. And so it gives you information about obviously the submission, but it also will give you, for example, a summary of the feedback that you have provided if you have provided some. So you'll notice that this first response doesn't have anything, but the second one I have already scored, and so it'll show up there. It's active, other people can see it, but this first one I haven't reviewed, there's no feedback, and it's still hidden. Speaking of how to review all these things, so once you click on any of the responses, so if I had clicked on that first one, I'm going to get to a page that looks like this. And so as the teacher, I see this, and this is only on the teacher side. And a quick overview of what this is going to look like for you. You're going to get the student's response in this left-hand corner. And you can watch the response. You can scroll through the previous and next responses. You can make it full screen. You can adjust speed like you normally do with videos. But in this, the default page is going to get you to the page for feedback. And so this is all about feedback. That's why it's highlighted here. These are the options that you're going to get for feedback. You can still feature a student response, as we mentioned before, in the list where you just start. There's also something called a spark. And so if you're reviewing student responses and there's a particular response that you think would be a way to spark and ignite a new conversation or a deeper conversation, and I want to use this post, for example, as a starting point for a new topic in my classroom, I can do that. So the same way that George mentioned, if you're creating a topic from scratch, you can add media to it. This spark button is just a way for you to add a student's response as a way to spark a new topic for discussion. And so if you ever want to do that, there's that nifty little button right there where you can spark a new discussion. The mixtape option is also here if you'd like it. And in terms of other types of feedback, you can leave video feedback to students. So if you want to do that, you can add video feedback here. And there is a rubric that goes with student responses, and it'll ask you, but it defaults to having a rubric for just ideas and performance. You can see here that if you would like to edit the rubric, you can and customize. But again, it's just one of those things in terms of thinking about how much you really want to get into customizing all these things. I think I would probably just recommend that you just leave it as it is. But you would click through rating students on their ideas and their performance as a rubric score. If you want to leave any text-based commentary, you can do that here. That was the feedback section. going on to the edit section. And so as a teacher, you do have the ability to edit some of the things on the response. I think the only thing I would probably call attention to here is what's called a vibe. A vibe for Flipgrid is, again, I'm reviewing the student response. I'm watching it, I'm listening to it, and I want to edit their response and add this nifty little text on top of their video. And so what I would do is I would go under Vibe. I type in whatever comment or phrase, affirmation I want here, and whatever I type into this Vibe box will show up on top of their video like this. And so again, it's just a way for teachers to connect and in a sense also provide feedback. But you are essentially editing their video because you're adding something on top of it. But if you'd like to do that, you can do that. Earlier, I mentioned this thing called a disco library. If you go up in your educator dashboard, it's one of the things that's up here in the menu. So disco library. I've already kind of mentioned that it's a very large library of pre-made community generated topics that are ready for you to use. You don't have to track down prompts and write them out. They're ready for you to use. And so if you go up to Disco Library and you have a topic to add, you can click add a topic over here on the top right corner. But if you want to just find something from someone else, I wanted to call attention to a couple things. They always do kind of like a weekly highlight, which they call weekly hits. You can scroll through these that are popular for the week. And they also have what they call playlists, which are kind of collections inside the library. So if you, for example, I'm pretty sure some folks in the district are using like vocabulary. And so they have a collection for vocabulary. They have a collection for hour of code. I'm pretty sure I've seen collections for like epic readings. And so I would recommend that you look through those in case you're interested and you want something pre-made and quick and easy to get out to students. And so that is the Disco Library. If you do find something that you see and you're like, ooh, I really want, I want to send this one that I like this one. Let me look at it. So if you were to click on something in the Disco Library, it would open up the topic. And so it gives you if there's any media attached to it, it'll show you the media that's attached to the topic. The directions that come with it will already be there. It tells you some kind of logistical information and some ideas. But if you open it and you're like, you know what, I really want to use this. I want to send it to my students. All that you have to do is you're going to go down to this drop-down menu and select which grid, again, a grid is a classroom, which grid you want to send it to. So which classroom you want to put it in. You're just going to click the drop-down menu, select the class you want to send it to, and then click add, and it will automatically add that topic to the group of students that you've selected. And so it is very simple to use. It very helpful to have things pre-made because, you know, these are interesting times. And so that being said, I think we might be taking a break.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we will go ahead and discuss what the student experience looks like and finish up. We probably have maybe no more than 30 minutes left of this presentation. I know some questions have been coming in. We will work on answering those at the end, but thank you for keep those coming in if you have additional questions. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes. right, and we are back. So we're going to go ahead and continue now with the student experience and what does this look like for students. And again, we will have a question and answer portion at the end of this so we can get to some of the questions that you've been sharing with us. But let's go ahead and get started. So Celia, we've talked about how to create the grid, how to create the topics, which are like the assignments. Now, once you've created that, we've talked about a couple of ways for you to share, that link. You could do it through Seesaw. You could do it through integrated with Google Classroom. Another way to do it is to go ahead and ask the students to go to flipgrid.com, and then they will go ahead and you will give them the flip code. I remember earlier, Celia talked about how she named her flip code was Selena's Scholars. So that's what you would give to them to enter that way. So that's one way to get in there. It doesn't matter if you do it this way, if you send them straight to the website, if you give them the link into, sorry, it does matter. So if you send them to the website, they will need that link. However, if you paste the link directly into Seesaw or Google Classroom, share it to Google Classroom, they will go ahead and get to this page that looks similar, that looks like this. Okay. Once they get in here, they will go ahead and the students will log in through Google. And they will select their account if they have multiple accounts on there, and then they will be in. So this is what a topic looks like. This is the grid. The grid is Selena's Scholars. We have here, this is the first grid on here, Say Hello. That's the title of it. Underneath that, notice that there's two topics, but we're going to go ahead and talk about a topic on here. So what the student will need to do is they want to add a response. For students to add a response, they will simply press the green plus button. It's very similar to Seesaw, so that's a plus. All right, and then they will get, this is the interface for students. I'm not going to go ahead and go through all the different options on here, but I wanted to let you know that this is what they have access to. And I don't know about you, but I can tell you that most of the kids, including my 4-year-old daughter, knows how to work with filters, knows how to add stickers, so their 4-year-old already knows how to do that. So I can only imagine, what our other students are going to be able to do. But here, the students are able to, some important things, students are able to obviously record themselves, record a video. Students can import other audio. They can draw on here. So this can be used like a whiteboard, and so the students can explain as they're drawing what they're doing. So a lot of different options on it. Again, I didn't want to go through it all, through every detail on it. I did want to share with you is that, be sure that just like with everything, we have expectations for our students, but also give them the opportunity for them to be creative. If the assignment is to respond to something and a student responds to it as you ask them, and then they decide to add little emojis or stickers to their, to their response, be okay with that, because we want students to be able to express themselves. That is one of the powerful features of Flipgrid. It allows students to express themselves both verbally and by using stickers and text and filters and so forth. So we're gonna have to be okay with that, as long as they are following whatever parameters you might have put for them. So so this is what it looks like for students. Very important to allow, in everything, to point out the do and undo button, right? The undo button is really important in case they make a mistake. Celia wanted to point out that they also have here, we have a board, and this board is like a whiteboard. So it allows pretty much students to be able to draw on there. Yeah, just draw on there whatever they need to. Again, if they're working on a math problem, they can go ahead and draw, a tape diagram, or they can go ahead and draw a 10 frame. Don't forget that students can also, some of you may be asking about this, maybe the student records themselves using Screencastify explaining something. They can import that video. Also. So that's an option on here. These three, when you click on these three little dots here. And I believe those are all the pretty important things that students will need to do.
You can screen record straight.
Okay. Celia wanted me to point out also that, and I guess I should have started with this because that's the obvious, is that you can record themselves. Students can record themselves straight from Flipgrid. So the camera will show up. They press the record button, and it will record the whole screen, like a screencast. You can actually do a screencast from within Flipgrid. Thank you, Celia, for making sure I get that important piece. All right. So here is, once a student has gone ahead and they want to see what they have done, their work, the students can always go to my.flipgrid.com down here, and the students will be able to see all the work that they have done. All their response that they have done. So this student has, as you can see here, 17 videos. Here's the responses on it. Now, one thing that, oops, what happened here? One thing that I wanted to point out, and Celia talked about earlier, was the feedback. So if you have given a student feedback, remember that you can give feedback typed. This is what, or if you could give them a grade, this is where it would show up from. They click on view, and then the students will be able to see their feedback, including any grade that you gave them, any written feedback, or any verbal. Remember, you can record verbal or video feedback to them. This is where they would access that information. Okay, so, and again, that's located, students have access to that under my.flipgrid.com. Okay, and Flipgrid also has some collaborative pieces that Celia is going to talk about. And I did want to let you know that at the end, we will go back to the student experience, because we're going to try something that we really think will get you a better idea as to how Flipgrid works and and how to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Celia.
Awesome. So let's get through some collaborative options that we have on Flipgrid. And so I already kind of mentioned them, but haven't really explained them. So one of the options that you have up here at the top are something called GridPals. And so GridPals essentially are a way for you to connect with other classrooms anywhere in the world. And so if you clicked on that menu, you're going to get to a page that looks like this. In order to be able to connect with other classrooms, you're going to need to first activate that. And so you're going to go to GridPals. It'll default to being hidden, and so no one else will be able to find you, essentially. But if you do want to make a connection with somebody else, another classroom, another teacher, different students, you can activate, and then other teachers will be able to connect and reach out to you. And so I think of it as like, how back in the day we had pen pals, right? And we would write back and forth with actual through actual mail. But this is the same thing, except that now we're not sending physical letters back and forth. We're having a discussion and communication and having these interactions through video on Flipgrid. And so this is just a way for you to have those quote unquote pen pals. But now, because this is Flipgrid, we're calling them GridPals. And so if you want to find somebody, make sure that you have your profile active on GridPals. If you want some more information, again, like you can just opt out of this and say, maybe I just don't want to do this. But if you are going to look into it and you want some more information, this text box is linked to what Flipgrid is calling like a passport. And so they give you some more information if you're interested. You can, once you're active, you can search by like grade, for example, if you want to find another classroom somewhere in the country or the world that's the same grade, you can do that. Just keep in mind that once you are GridPals, you can end up like inviting that teacher as a co-pilot onto a grid. But just keep in mind and be mindful of how you're training students to interact with GridPals, just in terms of like what they're sharing and student privacy. This is all digital citizenship considerations for sure.
Yeah, good point, Sally. I think it's really important that as we start sharing some of these things outside the world, that we keep digital citizenship in mind. But remember that also part of our standards talk about an authentic audience. So this would be a way for students to receive possibly a more authentic audience. So when you're ready for that, again, that might be down the line, but it is something that that would address some of our standards.
Thank you. There are also these things called shorts. And so again, going up here to the top menus, there's this button for shorts. And so shorts, you can record the short from here in the middle. But shorts are a way to, it's a one-way mode of communication. And so I think of them as like a way to like share an announcement or share a private message. So they're one way, they're not, it's not like a topic where other people respond to it. It's just me as a teacher sending something out one way. And so it could be like the morning message. I know a lot of teachers are recording a morning message. It could be just a reminder. It could be just a hello, like anything that you want to just send one way, you can create and record a short straight from your educator dashboard under shorts. When you do end up clicking on shorts, you're going to get the same option that the students get in terms of your response. And so you're still limited to 10 minutes. You don't have to use it 10 minutes. You have sticky notes. You have all the filters and fun things. You can record your screen here too. So like all these options that the students get, you do too. And so you're going to get this for creating your short, just like the kids do. Once you've made your short, they'll show up here under your shorts list. And so I only made one as kind of a demo, but it tells you when you made it. It tells you how many views you've had. So they'll come up here and then you can use them and send them as you see fit. In terms of like how to send them and what options you get once they're done, very similar to the way that you would share like a topic, as George has mentioned. It'll give you a link for that short so you can copy it. If you need to send it through Seesaw, for example, you would copy this link, paste it on your Seesaw. If you're sending it in Google Classroom, you could click that Google Classroom button down in the bottom right. You can close caption your videos. You can change the playback speed, all the video options that you would normally get, you get them for your shorts as well. So that being said, we're going to go back to thinking about, well, how does this really work for students? And I know we've gotten a lot of questions about like getting a little bit more hands-on experience. And so we're gonna send it over to George so that he can walk us through what this is going to look like as our students.
All right. So like I said, like I promised earlier, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go through an example and see what it actually looks like for a student to actually do this. So what we're going to need you to do is, and just so that you know, Celia is going to be acting as the teacher. So what we would like for you to do is we would like to go for you to go ahead, if you have the slide deck open because you took the code earlier, go ahead and click on this slide, and it's going to take you to a grid where we're going to ask you to respond actually to a grid with a topic already on there. If you did not get the link at the beginning of our presentation, just go ahead and type this type this link into your presentation. Into your Omnibox, and you will go. It will take you to a page that looks something like this. Once you are here, just go ahead and click log in with Google. You'll select your name on there if it asks you, and it'll tell you are successfully logged in. All right, so I am in Flipgrid right now. Notice that here is the topic on your introductions. The directions are here. Welcome to our classroom grid. This is the space where you will learn together. Introduce yourself in 3 minutes or less and share one thing that makes you smile. All that you will need to do is click this plus. I want you to notice that this is moderated. This is.
You're gonna have to go back and show the link.
Sorry, I apologize.
It's on the presentation.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go back a second because I just got pointed out that some of you may not have gotten the link at the beginning of our presentation, the first couple of slides. So I will go ahead and leave this up maybe another 10 seconds or so. Thank you for those of you that send us the feedback about going too fast with this link. All right.
Also, George, for everyone out there, that's D0, not D capital O. It's D0A9 4453. That's a 0, not a capital O.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, all the numbers, all the letters I'm guessing are lowercase and everything else is numbers. All right. We're back, and Celia's going to go ahead and show you one thing before I continue with the student experience.
Just so that you all see what this looks like for the teacher, because I actually had a fake student respond to this already. And so as a teacher, I got an email from Flipgrid telling me, oh, I just got another one. Oh my goodness, now there's 2. Oh, look who it is. And so as soon as I get responses coming in, as I'm already getting them, I get an email from Flipgrid as a teacher, and it tells me, hey, you're getting responses. But again, remember that this is a notification setting, and so I want those notifications. And so here I got some responses already. So all I have to do is click into it. Again, I get this box as the teacher. I can play this video. You won't be able to hear the audio because of my headphones, but this is Josh's. I can turn on closed captioning for you. Look how nifty that is. Love it. So there's his response. I can give feedback here. I can edit. Right now it's hidden because I'm moderating, right? So I can just go ahead and activate that. I'm going to update it. So as a teacher, again, like you get, let me go back to my grid. You get, here's my introduction topic. You get the list down here of all the responses that you've gone. I'm going to go ahead and just like mass approve these because the more responses we get. Oh, there's Mr. Joe. Hi, Mr. Joe. Yeah, so we just wanted to show you what it looks like for the teacher. And so as these responses come in, you're going to keep getting all those responses to your topics adding onto here. And once I activate them, then you should also be able to see them on your page when you're trying to respond. So I think we're going to switch it back to George.
All right, here we go. So I refreshed my screen. As you can see now I see Josh's response on here. I'm going to refresh it so you can see if anybody else has come. It looks like I have to log in every time on here, but let's go ahead and refresh that and notice, whoa, we are getting some people, interesting folks in here coming in. That's what you do at home. So yeah, go ahead and try this, and and just be creative. You see that Josh used some stickers, some stickers on there. So yeah, there's some filters and stickers. So try that and submit some responses. We'll give you. Why don't we go ahead and give them 5 minutes or 3 minutes? 2 minutes. You get 2 minutes. LSS.
Maybe go back to the link.
Yeah, to the link. I'm going to bring it one more time on here. So we can give you about 2 minutes to go ahead and just submit, play around with the tool and see what the student experience looks like. And then we're almost to the end, so we're going to go ahead and get some of those good questions that have come in. So give you about 2 minutes here. All right, just wanted to let you know that I no longer have headphones on, so I apologize for the difference in if it sounds different or the audio is not as good. So as you can see here, here's what's come in from some of you at home. It's great seeing some of you at home and some of the filters you've used on here. So, if you went ahead and unplugged it so that you could hear what people say, hopefully you're okay. I know, Ms. Clementa, you're always a good sport. So I'm going to go ahead and play yours so people can hear it.
Hello, my name is Elena, and something that makes me smile is Disneyland. And I'm missing Disneyland in this shelter at home time.
There you go. So you see what that looks like. And of course, I'm going to go ahead and like it. Can I like it? There you go. You got a heart there. Here's the next one.
What makes me smile is talking with my kids.
Oh, very cool. So, so as you can see there, as you're playing them, once you give like it goes to the next one. So the next, you want me to play Blake's? Yes. Let's go ahead and we're going to play this one because it's a good one.
Hey there, Mr. Doherty here. This is something that makes me smile. Say hi, Peanut.
Hi, Peanut.
That makes me smile.
Yeah, that makes us smile for sure. So this is what it looks like for your students, and I can tell you that you, just like some of you, have been very creative. Some of your students are going to be very creative. So again, that is part of them being able to perhaps show their personality, who they are, their identity. So it's a real good tool to allow them to be able to do that. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to, hold on a second here. Let me make sure that I'm back in the presentation here. All right. Which takes us, so that's what the student experience looks like. The last little piece on it that we have before questions is, here's some resources. So Flipgrid, I almost said Seesaw here. Flipgrid has a lot, some documents here that that help you with integration. So, so if you want some reference documents about how to integrate, this in your teaching, you can find it here. You have, those of you, especially those of you that may be working with SPED populations about closed caption, take a look at the accessibility features and see if that might be something that could apply to those students with those needs.
If any of you are familiar with Immersive Reader, you definitely want to check out those accessibility features. But just in case you're familiar with it, there's some really powerful features in Immersive Reader that's built into Flipgrid. There's nothing to turn on, nothing to set up, like it's already there.
And we will be, over the next, couple of weeks, look for the EdTech Weekly. We will be providing you examples of what's possible, what people are doing, just to give you ideas, as to how this can be used, this tool can be used. All right, which gets us to the final piece on here, which is a Q&A. So, Celia, you want to go ahead and do you want me to shoot you the questions? Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and mic.
All right. Sorry, we thought we had that fixed. Yeah, no. Again, just a reminder that there were some really specific questions, and so if you if we get back to you in email, we might have to do that.
So here's the question for one of the questions that we have, Celia, for you is, can they write on the screen in Flipgrid, like in Seesaw, so that they can do their their application problem, for example, in math, and then send the video solving directly to the Flipgrid?
Yeah, so they can definitely do like directly on the screen. Writing, they can do, like if you notice, like Josh had some stickers on top, like you can do things like that. You can place like images from somewhere else and place those as stickers. George mentioned that there was a little button to make a board. And so you can either do like a blackboard or a whiteboard, and students can write on that. They can write directly on top of whatever's being recorded. If it's just their screen, they can record the actual their actual computer screen to do like a screencast. So yes, all of those are definitely still options.
Here's another question, Celia. Is it possible to see, thank you, Julie, LSL community. Is it possible to see the number of views per, it's possible to see the number of views, but is it possible to see who has viewed them? Is that possible in Flipgrid?
Yeah, so I'm about to share my screen just again so that you all see what this looks like for the teacher. And so like this example that we had right now, let me see if any more have come in. But in this particular topic that we just did right now is practice. This is the view that I get as a teacher. So here's my topic. Here's my topic. And all the details are up here. In case you're interested in that immersive reader, the icon looks like this. And so again, if you need to look into accessibility features, please do that. It's very powerful. But in my topic as a teacher, I get to see all of the replies. And so remember that replies are replies to each other. And so there are 2 replies. Where are my replies? There they are. And so there's actually like a little, there's a column for your replies. And so I can see that. Who is this? Of course, it would be Josh. Josh has decided, your mic is on, Josh. Josh has decided to reply to a couple of posts. And so he has responded to his classmates, essentially, right? I have 86 views and 0.4 hours of engagement. And so it doesn't, it'll tell you the total, like the total number of views, the total number of engagement. And then if I go into, let's go in and look at Josh's. I can also see for this specific video, for Josh's response, he has received 18 views. But there's no way, I don't know if you saw even here, there's no way to like click on that to get information on like who has seen those specifically. The same with like on here. I can see that he has 18 views, but I can't specifically see who has seen them. The same with 86 views. I do believe that these like 86 views or however many views you have, they're not unique views or unique viewers. They literally are just like a count of how many times people have watched. And so if I'm assuming that if you're thinking of like how to track who has seen what, I don't know of a way to do that. Again, because these are all just collective viewing. And from what I'm able to tell, you can't filter by like, well, who's actually like those 18 views, who exactly were they? I'm not sure. We'll keep looking into it in case there's another answer, but.
So we have.
Are you muted?
George,
we have a couple of minutes before we have to end. So maybe 2 more questions.
So George, we have a question from Ms. Chavez at Fremont School, and the question is this like Seesaw and Classroom? Yes, it is. It has some aspects of both of them. And then she asks, how would this replace the use of those apps? It won't. It shouldn't. Flipgrid is not meant, we're not introducing something to replace something that we've already spent so much time working on as a district. We wouldn't replace either one of those. This is yet another tool in the toolbox. And in fact, because it's so video and discussion based, it adds a new piece of functionality that we didn't have before in Classroom and not even in Seesaw. While Seesaw has great ways to do video of kids doing things, and yes, they can record themselves, Flipgrid is purpose made for that. And it engages students in a different way. So this is not in any way meant to be a replacement to Classroom or Seesaw. Indeed, Classroom and Seesaw do not replace each other. They both have their own strengths and they both have their own weaknesses. They complement each other. We feel like Flipgrid complements those. So if anybody watching thinks this is meant to replace anything, that's not our intent at all.
Really good point, Josh. I was kind of thinking about the same thing, that these are, I remember being a new teacher and I had one way of teaching math or vocabulary. And then as I became experienced, I picked up different strategies, different tools that allowed me to do that better. So that's what this is, just another tool. It should not replace what you're already using, but think about which of the tools can best meet what you're trying to do with your students.
And nobody should feel like they have to implement Flipgrid right away. We just think it's such a, especially our ELs need to talk. Our English learners need to speak, to practice. Our bilingual students definitely need to practice in both languages, and Flipgrid is purpose built for that thing. In addition, kids might get a little antsy in Meet because they want to talk to each other. This is a really good teacher-moderated way to allow kids to have discussions with each other with the use of replies and the stickers. It's just a really fun way to have classroom discussions. And with Flipgrid having its own whiteboard and such, now we can add even more ways to address content. But again, this is not an either-or situation.
And I was just going to mention, I know we've had a couple of other questions in terms of like, I think wanting more examples and wanting to see what this actually looks like. And so on the very last slide, under extra, there are some other things that George mentioned, but I wanted to show you really quick this integration doc. And so the integration doc is made by Flipgrid, and they have ways to integrate different content areas in with Flipgrid. And so if, for example, let's say you want to do some 3rd to 5th grade science, clicking on the link here takes you to this document on Flipgrid. And then you would click on whatever integration you want to explore. And then they give you some ideas on how, like considerations that you might want to think about. But then they'll also give you like ready-made Disco library topics. And so again, if like maybe you're learning about the moon phases, then they give you ideas on how to integrate the topic of moon phases into your grids. And so again, these are already made. And so if you're looking for some ideas in terms of like, well, what exactly can I have the students do? You can use the integration doc. You can always go to the Disco library. Ooh, what's this? Pets, no pets. Look, it's your favorite movie, George. Sorry, folks, I got a little excited there. So even if it's just like creating classroom community, like, hey, let's just talk about like something that may or may not be content related, right? We've talked about like making those connections with students and creating that connection as a classroom during these interesting times. I mentioned that there are collections for Epic. And so again, like if you're looking for some more ideas, we'll keep sharing some ideas on the weekly. Feel free to look through those integration docs or the Disco library to get some ideas. But I think I'm gonna switch it over to George.
Yeah. So we are about done. We're going to go ahead and finish up. We wanted to let you know that I know we have some specific questions to each of you. So Celia and I will work to get back to you later this afternoon on those specific questions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Josh so he can close it for us.
All right, folks. We definitely appreciate you sticking with us this entire time. We hope that you get a lot of great usage out of the new Meet features that we talked about way earlier in the morning, and then that you, when you're ready, are able to start implementing Flipgrid with your kids. Feel free to, if you have a particularly cool idea that you want to share, please feel free to email us at, you guessed it, edtech@alisal.org. This video, as well as Ben's live stream today, will both be posted on remoteinstruction.org, along with the opening slides where we talked about Meet and the slides Celia and George used for Flipgrid. With that, we would like to say thank you. Have a great lunchtime. Have a great weekend. And we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.